We've reached the point in this world where the unbelievable has become the believable. L.A. Marzulli is here to talk about it. Hi, L.A., how are you?
Really good, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Over the years, you've covered so many dark subjects. And before we came on today, we were talking about just how dark things are getting. And yet we have to cover these things because the last days, as characterized by the Bible, cover subjects that most people don't even think about most of the time. I think we've reached that era, right?
I would certainly agree. When we look at what's just happening in 2015 with the record heat, record drought, animal fish die-offs happening, the wars and rumors of wars, the plethora of earthquake activity, the volcanic activity reaching, in my opinion, new heights. I mean, everything, we take one of those just by itself, you go, well, but you take all of them collectively. And in my opinion, we are in the last of the last days. Things are ramping up to some sort of a climax.
Now, you've been writing about the supernatural for many years.
Sure.
And I think you were moved to do that. I think the Lord has placed you in that role to expound certain scriptures that had lain more or less dormant for literally millennia. But I think we're living in the last days, and some of the references to the supernatural that we have are popping out into the forefront. For example, most of us believe we're living in the days when the Antichrist is certainly being prepared to be unveiled. We don't know how long in the future that'll be, but I think we're living in those times. And L.A., every time you read about the Antichrist, you read about the supernatural, deadly wound being healed. You read about him calling fire down from heaven. Something strange is about to happen, and that's right in the middle of where you are most of the time.
Well, I would agree with that. What we're looking at when we go back and we start reading the biblical narrative, specifically in the book of Revelation, or even the warnings of Jesus that tell us men faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. What is he talking about? Why is he trying to warn us from 2,000 years ago of something that will happen in the latter days? That even the elect would be deceived. I mean, to come up with a statement like that from 2,000 years ago. And remember, when he's saying this, there is no church, there's no cathedrals, stained glass windows, monks with funny haircuts. I mean, none of it exists. No Christian TV, none of it. It's just one itinerant rabbi running around the Galilee with a bunch of fishermen. I mean, that's all he's got. Yeah. And he says that, let no one deceive you. Even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. So something is coming. And we know from the biblical narrative that if we were to take the supernatural out of the biblical narrative, what's left? Because everything in that book speaks of the supernatural.
Well, I was looking at Daniel chapter 11 and what Daniel says about the rise of the Antichrist. And it says right here in the 38th verse of Daniel 11, but in his estate shall he honor the God of forces. Now, that's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's another God. And a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver, precious stones, pleasant things, and thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, or an alien God is what it actually says. We're living in the days when, quote unquote, aliens are everywhere. I mean, they're all over the motion picture business, videos, sci-fi. Everybody's talking about aliens. Alien is simply the word for a stranger, somebody from someplace else. If humanity is so preoccupied with this alien unveiling, why shouldn't we talk about the Antichrist in the same context?
Well, I think Chuck Missler has said at some point that the Antichrist may actually boast of an alien connection. In our Watchers series, specifically Watchers 7, we covered physical evidence. And we went into the lab with all sorts of physical evidence. And we show this in the Watchers. For instance, one of the most startling ones was that four-fingered childlike handprint that fluoresced. It was left on a wall. We cut the drywall out and took it into the lab. And sure enough, under fluorescent lighting, all of a sudden this handprint, and the fingers are bulbous on the end, 4 fingers. and it's about the size of a child. This man was abducted. This is physical evidence. We analyze it. I remember talking to the lab technician and saying, in your opinion, because we took some of the material, put it under a scanning electron microscope with an EDX, which analyzes what you're looking at. And I said, is this human? And he just looked at me and he said, no. I mean, just like that. It was like, so whatever we're looking at here, was it a hybrid breed? We don't know. But the man claimed to have been abducted. And here we've got physical evidence at the scene where it happened in his bedroom of a 4-fingered handprint. What do we do with things like that? We can pretend that they're not there. We can dismiss them. We can not talk about them. Or we can say that this points back to the supernatural. These are not aliens from Zeta Reticula. They are, in fact, the fallen ones coming back. And when they do come back, when they finally do reveal themselves, I believe it will cause the great falling away.
So those little gray aliens, and there must be a million pictures of those little
We've been
things.
enculturated, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you find them on pencil erasers and
Everywhere.
notebook paper.
Yeah,
You see the
keychain things.
keychains,
Sure.
little gray aliens. Are those demons? What have been classically called demons?
Well, in my opinion, the grays, and it's a little strange here. We know that demons are the disembodied spirits of a Nephilim, and we know that the Nephilim are the progeny from the fallen angelic host of heaven and the women of earth, coming together, husband and wife. Genesis 6 tells us this. There's a seed war that's going on. Genesis 3 talks about the seed war. Yeah. So if a fallen angel mates or has sex with the women of earth, creates this hybrid being known as the Nephilim. When the flood wipes the Nephilim out, the disembodied spirits of a Nephilim become the demons. They are different than fallen angels. So what I believe the grays are, and when you get someone like Whitley Strieber, who's on the other side of the aisle, he doesn't have a biblical world view like we do,
right,
talking about opening a drawer up on one of the ships and seeing the grays. How can that be? They were like suits, but there was nothing inhabiting them. So what many of us, and the late David Flynn and I had a phone conversation years ago when I arrived at the doorstep of this seemingly bizarre idea. And I said, David, what do you think the grays are? This is what I think. I think that the fallen one is a super scientist and in fact has created these suits, which are biological suits that allow the demonic entities to inhabit, and that allows them to manifest, literally, to reveal themselves in our space-time continuum, in this dimension. Otherwise, they're just spirit beings. So this, and that's why they all look the same. They move very robotic-like. That's what I think we're looking at. And we talk about some of that in our Watcher series.
And speaking of the Watcher series, I've got here a stack of 8 DVDs
Sure.
that you and Richard Shaw have produced over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have talked about these. We've talked about all the subjects, UFOs and signs in the heavens and the demonic world and the cosmic wars. You've written a lot about the cosmic
Sure.
wars. And you've also covered this entire situation that we have going on in the area of disclosure. There's a whole group of people out there that are clamoring for disclosure, like the government knows about these things and it's not talking. So we really live in unusual times right now.
Very much so.
But we're Christians. We are. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I've been a Christian pastor for many years. I teach the Bible believingly. That is, I consider it the inspired word of God. Every syllable in the original manuscripts is totally reliable and totally true. I believe in the virgin birth of Christ.
Amen.
I believe in the miracles of the Bible.
Absolutely.
In other words, I'm a Bible-believing Christian,
Sure.
but I'm watching these other subjects like you are and saying we must be getting really close.
Well, it's interesting at the church, and we've had this discussion before. Every Sunday we go to our churches and we sit in the pews and we listen to stories about the virgin birth or floating axe eggs or men that walk on water, or water that's changed to wine, men that get swallowed by a big fish and they regurgitated 3 days later, staffs that turn into serpents, and on it goes. Walls that just tumble down when people blow into a trumpet and give a great shout. Everything that I just mentioned talks about, reflects the supernatural. And the supernatural, in my opinion, if you take it out of the Bible, you're left with nothing. And so, we're warned, again, Yeshua, Jesus warns us that men would faint from fear from what is coming upon the earth. Unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. I mean, these are scriptures which are part of my core belief system and causes me to look out there and go, well, what are we looking at? What's really going on? What is manifesting in the tune of over 1,000 sightings per month. And of course, we're talking about the UFO phenomenon. And then when we look at the countries which have come on the record and stated that UFOs, like the former Secretary of Defense for the Canadian government, Paul Hellyer, stating UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. I'm not making this up. You can Google that for yourself and watch him say it. We actually had that clip in, I think, Watcher 7. And that's astounding for someone of that caliber to just make a blatant statement like that. UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. And Gary, we know, and this is what Christians need to understand, if we're still here and they reveal themselves, everything changes. I mean, everything changes at that moment.
And he would know, that is, he would have access to information that you and I would not have access to. Being a very highly positioned government leader, you know and I know that those jets that fly up there at 75,000 feet day in and day out with reconnaissance cameras see things that you and I never get a chance to see. And I think the governments of the world are trying to unscramble this whole mess. They're trying to figure out who these people are, how to communicate with them. And I think ultimately, in some coming era, the UFOnauts, whoever they may be, and
the intruders, that's your phrase, the intruders.
The intruders are going to present themselves as probably aliens from other planets, and they will be received by the people of planet Earth as saviors.
I agree.
And it's a great delusion.
I completely concur with that. I've come to term that the coming great deception and the Luciferian endgame. Which was what I wrote about in Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural years ago. And this is what people don't understand. If and when you get a mile-wide craft, and by the way, that's a preposterous L.A. People have seen mile-wide craft. We have it reported numerous times. Just even the Phoenix Lights, that craft over Phoenix, seen by thousands of people in 1997, including former Governor Fife Symington, stated that craft was absolutely humongous, about a mile wide. When you see something like that, and in broad daylight, and the cameras are focusing on it, all bets are off. If you know what it is our priority beforehand, then you won't be deceived. But you remember Jesus himself saying that even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. And I find those words to be extremely dire. So, you know, we can go and pretend everything's hunky-dory and just skip through life and watch football games, or we can look at the signs of the times and understand that we are living in tumultuous, tenuous, unprecedented times, and they are here right now.
Well said. By the way, the 8 DVDs of the Watcher series have been condensed into one convenient package, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. It's Watchers 1 through 8 in one package. And by the way, L.A. is a speaker. He loves to go and talk to various Christian groups and speak at length about the subject we're covering right now. And you've got quite a collection of presentations you've made here, prophecies being fulfilled in our lifetime. What are some of the signs of the times? What's the alien agenda? These are subjects that you regularly speak on. UFO disclosures. What is the alien gospel? That's a good question, by the way. What is the alien gospel?
The alien gospel, simply put, is this. When they come here, when they reveal themselves, they will say, one, aliens created all life on this planet. The aliens genetically manipulated early man. The aliens started the world's civilizations and religions. Now, at this critical juncture in human history, the aliens are back to usher mankind into a time of peace, prosperity, and knowledge. And guess what? The other side of the aisle, the New Agers, and there's a lot of really good people in that crowd, they're ready to embrace this. They're ready to embrace this because they really don't know the God of the Bible. They don't know who Jesus, they think they know who Jesus is, but they really don't understand who the Savior is and why they need him in their lives.
You write articles too.
Absolutely.
And you have a blog, and I know you write articles. I've read many of them over the years. That gives me an opportunity to introduce the Prophecy Watcher, our new magazine. And this is a mock-up of our first cover. And L.A. Marzulli is going to contribute.
It's an honor, Gary.
And you're going to be a contributor from time to time in the near future. And I'm looking forward to that because there's much to write about, much to talk about. And I just want to say concerning the Prophecy Watcher that we're doing something very special right now. We're offering our magazine to you as a lifetime subscription for your gift of $100. $100, lifetime subscription. And we're going to feature articles by Mr. Marzulli, by Bill Salas, Tom Horn, Bill Koenig, Ken Johnson, Carl Teichram, Avi Lipkin, many, many more. All the authors that have the latest news on world events from the prophetic perspective. And it's just going to be a fantastic magazine, just giving you the opportunity to be a lifetime subscriber to the Prophecy Watcher. Let me just hold it up here one more time for your donation of $100. Having said that, back to L.A. Marzulli. We're close to something. Before we went on today, you and I were talking and saying, in effect, we don't have much more time. Don't know how much more, but look at what's happened in just the recent few days. We're talking about sweeping social changes, sweeping changes in the Middle East, the dreaded financial collapse maybe beginning in Europe and coming here. In other words, we're really talking about a tumultuous era. And this is exactly what the Bible describes for the last days.
I'm working on a book called Days of Chaos, okay? And that's in the pipeline. It'll probably come out in September. And it basically deals with everything that you just stated. In fact, the companion DVD, the Watchers DVD, which will come out roughly at the same time, is also called Days of Chaos. So we've got Watchers 9 or 10, and then we've got my book, The Days of Chaos. When we talked about this in the beginning of the show, but when we really just step back and look at what's happening on a global level, I've never seen anything like it. It is dire. And instead, in the United States, we get every little nuance, every jot and tittle about Bruce Jenner's sex change operation. But we see nothing, for the most part, of the atrocities and the genocide happening in the Middle East, specifically in places like Syria and Iraq and other places where ISIL has taken 8-year-old children and beheaded them. I actually put a picture on that on the blog site, right underneath the Vanity Fair cover with Jenner. Which is affecting your life more? And all these things, we are distracted by a media who has ceased to do its job for all purposes. And they're not reporting on news which greatly affects us, because if we are looking at World War III, specifically the work of Bill Salas, the Psalm 83 prophecy, and it sure looks like we're ramping up for something, a war in the Middle East. We've interviewed Dan Gordon numerous times in our Watchers series. We re-interviewed him again for Watchers 9 or Watchers 10, depending on what happens in the pipeline. But Dan Gordon said unequivocally that everything is ramping up towards war. And this is a man who holds dual citizenship, Israeli and the United States citizenship. And he's a captain in the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. And he's been in all the wars. I mean, this is a guy, frontline stuff, he knows what's going on. And he told us, he said, brace yourself, because it's on the horizon. And there's no way out of it. It's on the horizon. So, you know, we look at all these things. We think about the volcanic activity, the earthquakes. I mean, just in Oklahoma, all the plethora of earthquakes that you've had here. They're talking now about helium gas coming out of the fault in Los Angeles. They're thinking about the big one. And I've talked about that and blogged about it, you know, for years now, that it's going to come. And what if we get a 9.0? In the Los Angeles area. But you take it and you look at in Pakistan with the heat wave, in India, record flooding, Pakistan record heat, record snow this last winter in New England.
Yes.
And on and on and on it goes. And it gets to the point where you go, wait a minute, you know, I'll be 65 years old this year. I've never seen it like this. I can go back 15 years. Yeah, we had little things going on, but not like this. And not all happening at the same time. And not all push. It's like the powers that have restrained has sort of pulled back and allowed the fallen one who's the master of chaos, by the way, to begin his agenda. And I think we're ramping up to something that's not good.
And all of these things coincide. We're talking about the supernatural, but that coincides with the moral and ethical collapse of the world today, because the power behind that, as Paul said, principalities and powers, rulers of darkness, the powers behind the ethical and moral collapse we see are governed by leaders the dark leaders in the heavens. And Paul said, listen, we're not wrestling against earthly powers. We're wrestling against the dark forces from on high. And you and I have grown up in an era when really it was not popular to talk about these things. We lived in what we termed normal lives, making a paycheck and providing for the children, providing for the future, making sure we had insurance policies, and just normal life.
Normal life.
It's not that way anymore.
No, it's not.
It's changing. And
It's
this
changing
is
rapidly.
Yeah, this to me suggests that we're very, very close to something.
Just a few days ago, the Supreme Court, of course, passed the Gay Marriage Act. And that was done on a Friday. And that night, the White House lit up in rainbow colors. Now, in order to do something like that, you have to orchestrate that. You've got to bring lighting guys in. You've got to test it and see if it works and all this other stuff. Well, that came out on a Friday, and just several hours later, the White House is lit up like a rainbow. 5 people have gone against the will of the American people.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I have a moment just to say this, because unless we stand up as the church, unless we unite against this, we have lost not the battle, we have lost the war. This is a fundamental change in Western civilization. This is a departure from democracy. And the ideology of the people that voted this thing in, they have an agenda. They were put in place for such a time as this. And all the church can do is to unite and begin to push back. This is yet another sign, a huge sign. Go back 50 years, who would have imagined something like this? And now, because the Supreme Court decision has become the law of the land, shame on them. We need to resist.
As you were talking, I was thinking about those rainbow colors. And where in the Bible do we see a rainbow? Well, we see it after the flood. The Lord set a bow in the cloud as a sign to know that he would never again destroy the world by a flood. I'm thinking to myself, here is a God, the Most High God, who has just destroyed the world with a flood, set a bow in the cloud, and today that very same bow is being used as a symbol of, if you will, an assault against God's very decrees.
Absolutely.
That bow has been taken and turned completely around, and I don't think it's very wise to do that. I don't think I would like to be one of those who is using that bow in that particular way.
But it's another sign that we are in the last days. These people, and look, I'm not saying hate these people, pray for them, love these people. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. Tell them the good news, and God can heal them. I mean, I know it sounds incredibly homophobic, but God can heal them. He's in the business of doing. But we need, as a church, corporately, throughout the world, we need to come up against this and say, no, we're not going to abide by this law, civil disobedience.
Well, that's the role of the church, in the world but not of the world. And I think we've been rocked to sleep a little bit over the last few decades. Let's talk for a moment about Watchers 1 through 8, because I'm going to offer that to you right now. This stack of 8 DVDs has been compactly placed into a case in which the 8 DVDs are laid out in order. And very accessible, very compact, and we're offering all 8 Watchers DVDs for $99.95. And we don't have nearly enough time to address all the subjects that are addressed in these 8 DVDs. But L.A., I must say, you've really poked into every corner over the years.
Sure.
And you're still doing it.
Shroud of Turin, alien implants, UFOs, black-eyed kids, for instance, bird and animal death falling, out of the sky. I mean, we've touched numerous wars in the Middle East. We've touched on numerous subjects over the years. It's been 4 years for the quest for the truth.
And all of this is very current. If you haven't seen it, you need to avail yourself of it. All 8 Watchers DVDs, $99.95, plus, by the way, when you order that, I have 7 bonus DVDs. And these are presentations you've made at various meetings where you have spoken to people.
In-depth presentations.
In-depth, by the way, and included in these would be charts and graphs and
all sorts of PowerPoint
presentations.
Yes, very much so.
And so what you're getting here is 8 Watchers DVDs plus 7 bonus DVDs for $99.95. 5. And all I can say is it would be money well spent on your part, because you need to be informed about what's going on. And LA has been given, I think, a very special ministry, a very special way of looking at the world to bring these things into focus. LA, we have a couple minutes here. Going out, what would you like people to know about your work? What are you looking at? There are things you've done that we haven't even mentioned.
Well, I just want to make a quick announcement here that we will be coming up with a Watchers special, probably within the next couple of months. And what we have on that material, and I'm saying this as conservatively as possible, we believe may be groundbreaking, may actually rewrite history as we know it. Now, I know that that's a very intense claim to make, but we've got some information. We're still trying to vet some of the information. We're going back over it, but we're confident that what we're going to release will be astounding, and that will probably be a special edition of our Watchers, probably Watchers 9.
And I can't wait to talk about that one. Of course, we'll get him back here when that comes out. But there's one thing we haven't even touched on, and I'd like to talk with you again and
Sure.
devote a whole program to this, and that is the idea that the sons of God came in into the daughters of men. It changed human history. It's written in the Bible in numerous ways. It's been ignored until recently, and you've really, well, you've been on the trail of the Nephilim.
Absolutely.
What can I say?
Yep.
And you haven't finished yet, right?
No, we're still doing it. In fact, I was just at an undisclosed location for the last 5 days on an archaeological dig. We've got some evidence from that which we're processing in the lab, specifically charcoal, carbon-14, trying to find out how old the site is. We have found some very interesting artifacts there. I've been to private collections and seen axe heads that weigh 14, 15 pounds, that are very large. So not only that, but certainly in Peru with the elongated skulls, we're on the trail, and we'll stay on the trail until we can get the evidence that we need.
So there really were giants in
Absolutely.
the earth in those days.
Most
As the
definitely.
King James says it, in Genesis chapter 6. And yet, all that's been sort of suppressed until just the very last days, and I think we're there, and this is just another indicator of that, right?
I absolutely agree with you.
I can't wait to see your latest work. By the way, avail yourself of a study of Bible prophecy. If you're not going to a church where Bible prophecy is studied and taught, find one. At the very least, stay with us at prophecywatchers.com. We'll keep you informed. That's what we're doing. We believe the time is short. We believe it's very important to understand Bible prophecy in the correct way. And that would be dispensationally, premillennially, pre-tribulationally. Find out what that means. And you will definitely profit by that study. L.A., good to talk to you.
Great. Thanks for having me on, Gary. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Come talk to us again, okay?
I'm sure I will. Thank you, sir.
I'm Gary Stearman. Keep watching, everybody. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.